1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Monday morning. It is Fat Monday, Robin.
Yes, it is.
Fat Monday. Lundy Monday, right?
Exactly.
Is that what they call it?
Lundy Monday.
No, Lundy Gras. Lundy Gras. Gras means fat, right? So
Yeah, that's
Lundy
right.
means, all right.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's Mardi Gras. Today's Lundy Gras.
Exactly.
I never knew this before. It's my first time ever knowing. So I'm having fun with it. All right, we're going to learn about something that's going on over at the Ocala Civic Theater. The promotion that we've been running here in WOCA sounds like it's a serious one, Robin. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm not. Chris Jorie is in the studio. He is the director of The Giver, and we've been hearing about The Giver. Randall Mooring is in the studio. I don't know what your role is, Randall. Do I know?
Randall's the giver.
The Giver.
Oh, you are the giver. You are the giver.
Yes.
All right, and I'm sorry, Matthew. What is your last name? Is it
Minassian.
Minassian.
Yes.
And you play Jonas.
I do play Jonas.
All right. Well, nice to meet you. And you're in the fold. You're in the flyer. You're the guy with the apple.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, good morning to all of you. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for inviting us.
So let me start with Chris. Did this play come to your attention because you saw it, you read it? How did you learn about this?
Actually, Mary Britt, executive director of Ocala Civic Theater, and my dear friend now for 20 years I've been working at Ocala Civic Theater.
Is that right?
Yeah, and Mary always has her eye out for me, and I've worked with a lot of young actors over the years. It's part of my specialty as a director and a teacher and a working artist, and so Mary said, we're doing The Giver. And she told me the dates, and I read the script, which is a very faithful adaptation of the novel, condensed, of course. And I said, oh, yeah, I have to do this. This is going to be great.
So tell me about it. Is it a musical, or is it just...
No. Well, Matthew, tell a little bit about the story of The Giver from your perspective. And I'll just say that it's a very famous YA novel, but it has universal appeal. I meet just as many adults who have read the book who say it's their favorite book as young people. But Matthew, tell a little bit about the story.
Well, Jonas is a kid who, well, not really a kid, but a young adult technically in the society because he's an 11, which is in this community, each year you progress another level, I guess.
Where is this? Is this not in America?
I wouldn't really...
Do we know? Or is it just...
We don't really... It's a community. It's this perfect
some community somewhere at some place in time.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
You're good. And...
Because it didn't sound like Boston when you said
And he's progressing, and he becomes a 12, and he, instead of getting assigned a job like everyone else does when they turn a 12, he gets selected to be the new receiver of memory, which means he has to go and be in this room with the giver all day, and the giver starts to do something interesting with... giving him memories.
Right, okay.
About the past, and he starts learning and getting wisdom from the memories, and it's really good. And it's a utopian dystopian society. So if you're into that,
okay, gotcha.
It's really good.
Well, when does this kick in? Because I've got a lot of memories, but no wisdom yet. I'm just curious.
Randall and I always laugh because Randall has a line about memories are forever, and we're both always forgetting things. So, you know.
So Matthew, may I ask, how old are you?
I'm 15.
You're 15. Wow, the casting is perfect for this, isn't it? I mean, so were you attracted to the play for a reason? Was there something you knew about it in advance?
Well, I'd been required in 6th grade to read The Giver, and then required again in 8th grade to read The Giver. So
did you read it the second time? I would have said to the teacher, "I got it. I didn't. I got this one."
I read the parts that we were supposed to read in class and read the parts at home.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, the teacher won't see those quotation marks. Don't worry.
Yeah. But it was one of my favorite books because I've always liked the utopian, dystopian society books like Hunger Games and Divergent, Unwind,
right.
that sort of stuff. And The Giver was one of my favorites. And so when I found out they were doing it, I was actually in Shrek the Musical when I found out, and they had already received the scripts and everything, and they were renting them. And I got it during Shrek and was reading it like backstage whenever I could find time.
Wow, how did acting become something that's part of you? How did you decide that acting was going to be your thing?
Well, my dad has a bachelor's in the fine arts, and so he was always into the acting aspect of life and stuff. And then in 2015, I think I was 12, I found out they were doing Mary Poppins, and I auditioned for that, and that's when I started because I got cast as Michael Banks in that.
Okay.
We love that show.
Yeah.
That was such fun.
So you've named a couple that I've actually seen, and I love both of them. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. We got to meet some stars, Robin, by our relationship with the Ocala Civic Theater.
And Randall, do you have different aspects of your character throughout the play? Are there different emotions that you exude while you're teaching Jonas?
Well, I hope I do. Yeah. The Giver is a recipient of all the knowledge and pain of a society. Okay? So there's a lot of scope there. You can play a lot with that.
I'm surprised they didn't pick an old guy to play that role. What?
I know. I keep asking myself why they did that.
You're going to get me in trouble again, Larry.
I figured, that was one of the reasons I auditioned for it, aside from Chris being there. At my age, they're few and far between, and I figured, well, that's a good one.
Isn't it something that we're all supposed to do? We're all supposed to pass on our wisdom to the younger people, right?
Well, yes. Ironically, in this case, he's the only one that has it. They've decided that they're not, the society has decided that they're not going to have pain. They're not going to have knowledge. They have common knowledge, but fundamentally they've taken all the bumps out of life. They have made it a gray existence of contentment, but with very little joy. And the only people who are aware of even colors are the giver and the receiver in this case.
Oh my God!
I don't know who wants to answer this, but is that do you think the underlying reason that the writer wrote this?
Well, it's interesting because most people who read and experience the book, and there actually is a film that came out several years back, experience it as a dystopian novel. But Lois Lowry, who is the author, says, I didn't intend for it to be dystopian. I didn't intend for it to be sci-fi or fantasy. She goes, I wrote a story about a young man trying to find his way in a complicated world. So she envisioned a complicated world where the community is built on sameness. As Randall has said, they've taken out all of the obstacles in the community. Anything that's unpleasant or difficult, they sort of have removed them from their daily life. And because the Giver character has the memories of all the other things that we used to experience, somebody has to hold those memories, and Matthew's character, Jonas, is designated as the person who is going to receive those memories because he has a similar gift of being able to see things other people can't see.
And there's also a mysterious element in here. You also have a mystery of a person that disappeared.
Yes. I'm trying to figure out how to answer that without going into too much detail because I don't want to give it away.
Yeah, okay.
But no, there is a person. You refer to a person, and you're aware of this person's existence, but you don't really know what happened until towards the end.
Don't even know her name.
Exactly. Her name can't be spoken in the community. So there is that element of mystery, which adds to it. And there's I guess you could say, somewhat of a surprise reveal towards the end.
But it's a she.
It's a she.
Is it Hillary?
No. No, nobody contemporary.
She was at the Grammys, right?
Yeah, right. And on a personal note, your granddaughter
Yes.
Randall was cast also. Did you know about this in advance, or was this? Did you all
knew
find
she
out
was
at
going
the
to
same
read, but of course I didn't know when that she was going to be cast. I didn't know when that I was going to be cast. One doesn't.
Right, exactly.
So you go in, and it's a high point to be able to work with your granddaughter on stage.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
That's really cool. Matthew, do you this probably goes without saying, but do you find yourself as a young actor learning from the older actors?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm in acting 1 at Westport, and Miss Shelley is an amazing actor. I haven't seen her in anything, but I've been told by everyone that she is. And aside from Miss Shelley, with all the shows that I've been in, there have been older actors like Randall. Everyone tells me how great he is, and this is the only thing.
He's fabulous.
This is the only thing I've ever seen him in, even though I'm up there with him. But oh yes, I can definitely the older people who have been with this a lot longer than I have can take a note, maybe like given by Chris, and completely change what they've been doing. Yeah,
just a little. Really, like a little technique. So from the older perspective, do you look at Matthew and say you have a tool we didn't have when we were younger? In that, I mean, he can videotape himself on his phone and see if he looks.
I do that.
Do you really?
I do that.
I'm just wondering if that's a kind of a shortcut to perfecting the craft of acting.
Excuse me, I have something to say.
Please, jump right in.
You know, when we talk about articulating, since we are doing a play that's based on literature, and when we talk about articulation and vocal projection, I realize, and I have to always go back to the young people and remind them of that they're learning acting from a different device. I learned it from live performances, and they're actually learning it from small screens and larger screens.
Gotcha, right.
So there's a different way of using. You don't have to be that loud when you're speaking into your phone.
Okay.
But
yes, but on stage, but they have microphones too, so.
Yeah, but we didn't. Back in the day, it was all about, voice diction, vocal production, and you spent a lot of time developing that skill because you needed it to be able to be heard.
And do facial expressions have to be exaggerated when you're on the stage as opposed to a camera 3 inches in front of your face?
I always look at it as you have to reach out to the person in the last row. Whether, you can see them, you can feel them. You just have to reach the same thing that the device or the camera would pick up. You have to reach that out to maybe where I can see Sears here, You have to reach that out, the energy. So it's a very different feeling, and it can mean that things are broader in terms of your physicality and your vocal expression.
And Matthew, do you feel you are on a mission right now, because the book has been out 14 years now, and there's a lot of people out there that have read the story.
There are a lot of people out there that this is one of their favorite books ever. I know even in the cast alone, we have like more than half the people have read the book, and most of those people love the book. So there is a lot of pressure riding on me and the rest of the cast to make it good, but I think it's going to be good, so I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you are exciting. So it starts this Thursday, is that right?
Yes.
This Thursday. Are you nervous?
I'm nervous, but
this is like a starring role for you, right?
Yes.
Is this the first time you're in a starring role?
This is my first time being the lead in a show. I've been a lead in shows before, but never the lead.
And am I right? This is a serious play, right?
It is. It's a drama.
Okay, so is that harder or easier than a comedy? It must be hard to know from the audience, because I guess in a comedy you know because they laugh. But how do you know that the audience is really into this?
Well, there are definitely a lot of, as Chris calls it, an arc moment where it gets really emotional, and I think that the audience could portray that they're interested in it, because
you don't hear a peep, right?
Sniffling.
You hear him crying. Oh, you'll hear Robin crying, I guarantee it.
But I don't think it's harder. It's different. I've never actually been in a what you would call a comedy, but there've been parts in shows that I've been in that are comedical.
You were in Shrek.
Yes.
There's a green monster farting.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but there's also a dramatic part to Shrek. It's not
true.
only a comedy.
That's true. Yeah. Well, good for you. Yeah. Randall, you were going to say something. When I was
I was
asking.
just, when you were talking about what kind of feedback from the audience, an audience is a vital part of any live theatrical production. They do give you feedback.
Sure,
and
I'm
it's
sure,
a
yeah.
synergy that develops back and forth between the actors and the audience.
I'm just wondering how you know.
The
serious
silence,
one.
what you said, the silence, when you don't hear a peep, you don't hear people coughing, they stop moving. It's almost intense. It's hard to describe, but when you have, in our case, 400 seats out there, all of a sudden when 400 people get very quiet, you think, oh boy, I'm there and they're there and they're with me and this is working. Yeah. And it's something you perceive on stage, at least almost subconsciously. You have to pay more attention to what you're doing. You can't focus on the audience. But nevertheless, that silence emanates from them, and you're aware of the fact that they are with you.
That might be more rewarding for the actor than a comedy, right?
It is for me. And you don't, your holes, your pauses, you create them yourself. You don't have to wait for the laugh as you do in a comedy. But it's very satisfying, yeah.
And this is more of a real-life parallel for you, Randall, because you're teaching life to this young person, and you've got children and grandchildren, and you've been doing that all your life, and you have to decide, if they should really learn about the bad guys.
That's very true. And his concern, the giver's concern about actually imparting pain, if you will, teaching people. There's a very good scene. I don't think I'm revealing anything about when he learns about warfare.
Oh my!
Yeah, think about it. So, and that is good. It is a good parallel because, as you say, as parents, we have to wonder when do we expose our children to the ugliness in the world, and yet at the same time you can't shelter them. And this is a underlying theme in the entire play. It's good. Yeah. It's really good.
And this might be a turning point for your character then, Matthew. We don't want to say too much, but...
Yeah, no, we don't want to say too much, but it's definitely one of those arcs that I'm talking about where it's a big, dramatic moment, and come see it to find out.
Are you in school during the day and then you go do the play in the evening?
I am. I have school from, I actually have 0 period in the morning, which is a period before school actually starts.
We need one of them, Robin.
So I go in at 8:20 in the morning, and I get home at 4, sometimes later, depending on if I have...
So when we are in the audience, you take us into that world of the giver. How do you get into that world? I mean, you're getting from this day, a normal day of school, next thing you know, you're a different person. How do you get there?
Well, I don't really have anything that I do in specifics. I know some people have, like, warm-ups where they get into the character. But for me, it's really, I could go to the theater, and if I'm rushing to the theater, like I've been late before and I have to run in and start, but if I get there with enough time to just like mentally prepare myself, like, oh, I'm about to go up there and I'm about to, so get with it, you're there. And so I just need a little bit of time, like 10 minutes to realize that I'm about to go do this whole show.
One of your fellow actors was here, Dion. What's Dion's?
Dion Howard.
Yep. He was in here last week or so, and he said putting on the costume is what helps him get into the character.
It does help. For me, it is the costume a lot. Sometimes the costume can be an obstacle if it's kind of restricting, like the costume that I have to wear for the giver. Not going to give anything away with it, I hope, but it's kind of tight. But so that's
Peter Pan's was tight.
That's part of the story.
Well, it's not part of the story. It's just not. It's a different kind of tight. Peter Pan's was like tights. It's fitted.
Oh, I see.
But it's also a lot of the technical. Like for the giver, there is a lot of tech aspect. So we had our first Q to Q on Friday, and then Saturday we had the whole run-throughs with all the tech, and tech does a lot for me too.
Is there a score, Chris? Is there music?
Well, I sort of can't speak to that because it's something important about the story, except that there is music that happens in the show.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to wait for it for a while.
Is there anybody in the orchestra pit at all? Or?
No, it's all of our sound is recorded.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's like a mystery answer.
Yeah.
And, as a playwright, Chris, were you allowed to take liberties if some line wasn't exactly working?
You know, I never do that, first of all, without asking express permission from the author, unless it's something very, very minor.
Does acting make you good looking? You three guys are good looking guys.
I think so.
I mean, what happens? You just like say, I'm going to be an actor, and I got to fix my face.
Oh, I don't know.
I should be an actor, Robin.
My wife's parents helped found the Ocala Civic Theater
I remember you telling us that.
I mentioned it before.
Yeah.
So when we moved here in '73, I didn't stand a chance. I mean, it was my wife had grown up with it and what have you. So I pretty well had to go out and audition, you know. And once you get the bug, it stays with you. It's a team sport. And it's one you can play all your life. Although as you approach the end, the roles get fewer and fewer between.
There's less competition.
That's what it is. Right.
I think when you were here last time, also another topic that came up, I'm curious if you guys can add to this, is that the Ocala Civic Theater is unique in that every town does not have a local theater company that is as good as ours. And I'm bragging, right? I mean, Robin knows better than me. She's been going forever. I've gone the past year because she takes me. She'll say, come on, let's go. and I've seen some, I mean, you guys are amazing. What happens over there? And I mean.
Yeah, the production level is very high. And I've worked, you know, I work professional venues and university venues, but the quality of the work here has always been consistently good.
Is this a period piece, or what era is this in?
Well, that's kind of a mystery, too.
Oh, okay.
It definitely isn't designated in the novel, but you can sort of use your imagination when you hear the story yourself as to where you think it is. It leaves a lot of room for interpretation. You know, you could do it as part of our everyday world today, or an aspect of. I've told some of the younger people that I remember when I was getting out of high school, I had a young friend, and she married early, and she and her husband went to a place in Illinois, which was a utopian society. They were building this new community that was some kind of utopian society.
What? In Illinois?
In Illinois, in the cornfields of Illinois, and they had started the community, and they were building houses. And
her father must have been so angry.
Yeah, she wasn't married to him for very long.
I was in LA. This is in the 70s, so this is like ancient history to Matthew. And back in those days, there was a 25-cent TV attached to the seat, so you could watch TV while you were waiting for the bus.
Yes,
I was on a bus stop or something.
Yes,
right? And a really pretty girl, sat next to me, and I was only 22 years old, so. You know, pretty girls made a big difference. Not that they don't now. And so I'm watching All in the Family, and she says to me, "What would you do if I told you that the Messiah was in the mountains?" I would say, "Cool." She wanted me to go to the mountains. You know, I'm sure that's what happened to your friend. There was something in the cornfield.
Yeah, and that happened when I came to Northern California, too. When I first moved there were a lot of communities where they were building the perfect society.
And they tried to recruit you with pretty girls?
No.
That's usually the
They
lore.
had unusual names like Diamond and Laser and things like that, and I always was a bit skeptical. My mother ingrained common sense in all of us children.
Good for you. Yeah, don't let that happen to you, Matthew. There's no 25-cent TVs anymore, so.
Well, Civic Theater is doing something special with this performance of The Giver. It starts on February 15th and goes through the 25th. And the matinees are always at 2 p.m. The evening performances are at 7:30 p.m., but they have two special performances on two separate dates. On the 17th, there will also be an additional performance at 11 a.m., and on the 24th, there will be an additional performance at 11 a.m. So there's going to be a lot of time to see The Giver. We expect full houses.
Well, we certainly hope so. I know it's really popular. I know that, for example, when I first came here and I had an Enterprise car for a couple of days, that the gal behind the counter knew all about The Giver when I told her what I was doing here, and she was thrilled, and she couldn't wait to come.
Oh, wow. We'll be giving tickets away as well. Thank you all for coming in, Randall, Chris, and Matthew. I can't wait to see it. I'm sure I'll be going.
Well,
when are you going,
very
Rob?
much.
I think we're going Friday.
Oh, Friday.
Yes, you and I.
Yeah, well, we're both
I
going.
think we're going Friday. Yeah.
Please hang around after the curtain and wait. If you have time, wait a moment in the lobby, and we'd love to talk to you afterwards. See what you thought of
I might
it.
have some leftover beads from tomorrow. Would you?
Good. Mardi Gras beads, huh? Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for asking
Thank you
us.
very much.
All right, we'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Here are today's headlines from The Source. WOCA. Last week, the Florida House and Senate passed their respective budgets.